Hi, I'm Rob Ludeman, Senior Director of Solutions Marketing here at Pure Storage, and we're excited to talk to you about consolidating database workloads. I'm joined by Melody Zacharias, who looks after our database solutions here at Pure. Welcome.
Thanks. Happy to be here, Rob.
Well, the context is one that hasn't changed for quite a while. We know from looking at various pieces of analyst research that data continues to grow. Not a huge surprise, that's been going on for years and years, but also that budgets are not growing similarly. You get 40% data growth rate, but only 10 to 12% that CIOs and CTOs have to work with on an annual basis. So that is going to create a problem. But Melody, there's also a technical problem that we're looking at, and that's the nature of data gravity. Can you explain to people what that is and why it's become much more of a concern?
Yeah, doing more with less, not a new problem. But data gravity is a technical term that's becoming more and more of a common term for a lot of people. And if you think about gravity in itself, it's being weighted down. So it's all of this data that's been gathered over the years and continues to gather that's weighing down your business. How do we deal with that? What do we do with it? And it's going to gather in your data center, and we have to do something with it. What are we going to do, Rob?
That's right. And it leads to problems, right? Ones that are really well known. It leads to sprawl, so investments that are perhaps made over time to run certain applications because maybe what you've invested in doesn't work properly. And ultimately what we see, it leads to silos, right? Lots of things tied up in little pockets, which is a really inefficient way to go off and operate. So there has to be a better way.
Absolutely. Yep. These silos get divvied up for different departments. Sometimes you even get what's considered rogue IT departments that are doing things on their own because they're not getting serviced by their IT department. Or sometimes they even have their own budgets and they're pulling off sections of their data to be used elsewhere. So then you get an IT department that doesn't have a knowledge of even where all of their data resides. So if you don't even know sometimes where your data is, how can you do things like use it or protect it? These can cause really big problems for your IT department. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're talking about consolidation. Some of the biggest impacts that we have when we work with our customers is around reducing the footprint that they have, and just a kind of a simplified diagram of a rack of a lot of things moving to our latest FlashArray XL and FlashBlade that can be used for backup and unstructured data. But when we're talking about various things that we solve for, we're really looking at Oracle, we're looking at SQL Server, your favorite, we're even looking at SAP HANA, as well as the various flavors of open source databases or modern databases that have sprung up over the last 5 to 10 years, primarily used as development tools, but some of those even have found their way into production mainstream.
Yeah, and let's not forget about, for FlashBlade, all of the unstructured data, because that's caused a lot of sprawl as well, particularly the unstructured data, because it's a lot harder to manage that. People just aren't understanding how to keep track of it because it's not necessarily attached to any one application.
Well, and it's actually growing at a faster rate than the relational data, right? We're used to the growth rates being very mature at about 10 or 15% on some of these relational databases, but now you start looking at these modern applications and modern databases, it's 2x or 3x the data growth. So Melanie, now that we've set the context around the challenges and we know kind of the databases that we're focusing on and basically what we can provide, let's go into how we best solve these problems. We'll keep them really more at a high level and drill into a couple of these areas. But the first is around risk, right? And if you have that data sprawl or the silos that we talked about or shadow IT, you don't know where everything is, which can create some really risky scenarios for enterprises.
Absolutely. So the risk there is when you don't know where everything is, you can run into compliance problems, auditing problems, and just the fact that when you don't know where everything is, you can't monetize that data. So one of the things that people are talking about for data is the new oil. And you can't make money on that if you don't know where it is, and you can't use that if you don't know where it is. So by consolidating everything into one location, then you can use it in different ways, make money on it, and even if you're not using it right now, you know where it is when you want to use it in the future.
Yeah, and certainly risk being one of the things that the exec levels, look at relative to data. And you mentioned the compliance piece as well.
Yeah.
I think the second one that we hit that we see really frequently is operational efficiency. And this speaks to a number of things. It speaks to optimizing staffing ratios, right? It's directly related if we go back to budgeting here. We consistently see that customers that invest in Pure are able to better use the staffing outlays that they have. And it's not to say eliminating staffing, it's more to repurpose and to leverage staffing in a much more strategic sense, or to redeploy on other projects, or to make generalists. But also there's just the operational efficiency of having fewer things to manage, fewer cables to hook up, right? All those sort of day zero and day one challenges that go into deploying and operating on a daily basis. We just are able to eliminate all those.
One of my favorite examples is when I was a DBA, we would often have to look at space reports and make sure that there was enough space as our databases grew, that we weren't going to run out of space. And it happened once, and then after that, our manager made us look at it every day. It was a huge waste of time. But with the Purity operating system, there's an alert that goes out. So I would be, now as a DBA, I would be alerted if that happened. It was a report I wouldn't have to check every day. It would save me so much time, and I could be doing something of higher value, which I was always wanting to get to, one of those projects. It would just be so much more efficient.
Yeah, and even more so with Pure One, you can see the future, right? You've got the workload planning capability. So that's right aligned with the ability to consolidate, is why not look at your workloads and put in projections for how you think these things are going to grow, or any other workloads. I think we capture 10 or more of those, and project those out and see how and when you need to invest over time. We make it really easy to eliminate risk and operate more efficiently, which leads to the final one, and really a no-brainer here, is the reduction of cost across the board. Honestly, when you're going from a whole bunch of things that consume a lot of electricity and require a lot more cooling and take up space that everybody pays for in the data center, or if you're consuming in a hybrid fashion, there's just a lot more money that goes there. And there's no surprise that we Pure right now are focusing heavily around ESG.
That's true. But now, Rob, maybe I won't get that server I wanted to buy because it might be more cost effective to consolidate. But ESG is an important thing. We're all worried about the environment, and we want to consolidate to keep costs down. I love that we can upgrade parts of the array without having to replace the entire thing. So what else is there for other than Evergreen for ESG, Rob?
Well, we actually have a great report that just went out a few months ago, and you can find that at purestorage.com/ESG to get Pure's entire read on everything that we do that is for environmental, social, and governance. Obviously here we're focusing a lot on the environmental because that directly relates to the amount of cost savings that we can help users extract out of their environments, but it's a real big commitment for Pure that you're seeing right now, and hopefully going to address some of these challenges head on.
And don't forget, when we're consolidating, we're also taking down the amount of power. So all of this rack, when you take it down to this smaller space, you're reducing power, cooling, and data center footprint in your workspace. So all of that is also going to save you money. To
check out more, like I said, check out purestorage.com/ESG for more details on how you can benefit from our commitment to ESG. And I hope you've enjoyed learning more about how Pure helps consolidate database workloads. Thanks, Melody.
Thanks.